and welcome to our deep dive review of the Epiphone Kirk Hammett Greeny 1959 Les Paul Standard. Okay, so most people are familiar with the backstory of the guitar, the very famous Les Paul upon which this is based, Peter Green's 1959 Les Paul Standard, which has been dubbed Greeny, later came into the ownership of Metallica's guitarist Kirk Hammett, and it is from he that this new model, this Epiphone replica of the original, comes. Now, for a bit of context, we've already seen custom shop versions of Greeny that cost £18,000 or thereabouts, so that was massively a collector's item and virtually unobtainium. Then, more recently, there's been a Gibson USA version, which is close to the £3,000 mark, which we reviewed a short while back. And now, finally, we have an Epiphone version. Now, I was going to say we have an affordable Epiphone version. This is an interesting feature of this guitar is that, as Epiphones go, it's quite a salty price. It's about £1,500, and we're going to go into what you get for that money shortly, but it forms part of the inspired by Gibson range of Epiphones, which is like Epiphone's top tier guitars. And you'll find other models in that range, which are like 1959 Les Paul Standard. There are 1961 SG-shaped Les Pauls. There are 1958 Flying V and Explorers within that inspired by Gibson range. They are the kind of top flight Epiphones. And the thing you need to know about that is that, as mentioned, they do a standard 1959 Les Paul Standard, which is about £969. So this is over 500 quid more expensive. So what do you get that justifies or not that hike in price? So we're going to have a look at that today. It's, as you'd expect, it's a two-piece mahogany body with a centre joint with a maple cap. Now, despite the fact it has got a genuine maple cap, the nice flamey top on it, the visible part of that is actually a veneer, so it's a very thin layer of more figured wood over what we presume is plainer maple. So that's a little bit of window dressing if you like, but it looks quite nice. The finish is a kind of satin, almost like a satin or semi-matte finish, which is very tactile. It's quite nice. So you've got the mismatched controls. You've got the sort of 60s styles one here, 60s style ones here with the silver tops, and the more 50s style ones there, which is a feature of the original upon which this is based. The neck appears to be one-piece mahogany. It's got an Indian laurel fingerboard, okay, so not rosewood, but in a kind of slightly more luxurious touch. The inlays appear to be actual mother of pearl, not plastic, although they may be laminated mother of pearl. They have a sort of natural iridescence to them that's quite appealing. Up here at the headstock, you'll notice there's no sort of silk screened logo there. That is again meant to emulate the original from which the logo's worn off. The tuners are Grover Rotomatics, but with these more contemporary buttons on, which again is sort of emulating the current state of the guitar, the original guitar that this is based on. Hardware-wise, we've got Epiphone's Locktone ABR bridge and stop tail. What you need to know about that is the Locktone technology stops these falling off when you remove the strings. When the string tension comes off, they won't just fall on the floor or on your foot. They'll stay where they are, which is quite a handy feature to have. It's all done with sort of spring-loaded clips, so that's quite nice. Another little styling detail, you'll notice that the legend for the which pickup you're on is missing from this. It's meant to be worn off like it is on the original. So as you can see, there's quite a few small touches which go some way to emulating the look and the feel of the original Greeny. All of that's great, but most people will be interested in the pickups and sounds of this guitar. Primarily, not least because the original Greeny had a famous out-of-phase sound in the middle position. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. talk about pickups. They're actually the same Greeny buckers that are fitted to the Gibson USA version, which is rather more expensive at $3,000. However, the Gibson USA Greeny buckers were unpotted. These are wax potted, and instead of aged covers, they've got this these shiny nickel covers, which are a little bit more modern looking. Got 500k CTS pots, and you've got 0.022 microfarad Mallory capacitors fitted, and the wiring layout is 50 style, so that means the volume and the tone are a bit more interactive than in more modern versions of the Les Paul. They sort of affect each other throughout the various positions of each knob. So people who've used one, some people like it that way, some people like it the less interactive modern way. This has it the 50s style, which again is meant to be more authentic to the original. In terms of pickup output, the pickups, these measured out at 8.2k DC resistance for the neck and 8.5k or thereabouts for the bridge. So they are apparently a sort of balanced set, which is a bit stronger at the bridge, which is what you would want because, of course, the strings vibrate more freely near the neck, which inherently gives it a little bit more volume, unless they are made to be balanced, as they say, with the bridge with a slightly hotter output. So 8.2k to 8.5k, they're at the hotter end of what you might expect from a PAF replica. So this is definitely a reasonably pokey guitar sound-wise. That's the pickups and the electronics. The last feature that is definitely worth talking about here, because it's kind of a bit newsworthy in its own right, is that unlike other Epiphones that we've reviewed up till now, it's got a full-on, honest-to-God Gibson open book shaped headstock. It's not the short Epiphone open book style shape that Epiphone have been using recently. It's not the longer Epiphone headstock, nor the sort of clipped ear version that we saw on 90s and noughties Epiphone Les Pauls. This is the same shape as you'll see on standard Gibson Les Pauls. We're told that this is a feature that will appear on the Inspired by Gibson guitars that have been made in collaboration with the custom shop. So this is probably going to be an ongoing thing, that the very top of the top tier Epiphones that are made in China will receive a standard Gibson headstock shape where appropriate. And whether that floats your boat enough to spend a bit more on the upper tier Epiphones is down to the individual, but it's worth noting that an actual Gibson tribute spec Les Paul is cheaper than this model. So there's a considerable overlap, if you like, between the top of the Epiphone range and the lower parts of the Gibson Les Paul range. And where you sit on that will very much depend on how much you want the features and the unique cachet of having a Greeny replica. But it's an interesting move by Gibson to give people that official Gibson headstock shape for the first time on one of these models. So with that, let's have a listen to some of the sounds this guitar makes. A little word on signal chain. We're playing through an orange OR30 head. It's a nice sort of 70s sounding valve head. I'm using my pedal board, which has got a few pretty standard pedals on it. It's got a J-Rocket JTM 45 style overdrive on it. We're using a Boss Space Echo RE202 pedal. There's a little bit of reverb on it from a Free the Tone Ambispace digital reverb. Again, we're not drenching it in that, but you will hear a nice little bit of reverb, and that's about it signal chain wise. You'll hear that in the various bits of music that you'll have already seen at the start of the video and throughout this video. It's all coming from that little loadout of kit. Before we get into more of that, however, let's just hear some of the sounds this guitar makes in isolation. So I'm going to switch the reverb off, I'm going to switch the delay off, and we'll just hear it completely clean and bone dry, and then I'll add a little bit of drive just so we hear those for reference and you can hear some of the sounds as we go through. So we'll start with the neck pickup. Okay, here's that out of phase middle position. Remember the magnet's flipped in the, it's not just the other way round, the magnet's also flipped, which gives you a magnetically, the magnetic polarities reversed, so you get the out of phase sounds in the middle. So here's that out of phase middle position. Finally, here's the bridge pickup. Okay, let's put a little bit of drive on. So again, no reverb, no delay, it's just absolutely dry, except for some drive from this J-Rocket JTM 45 style pedal. So this is the neck pickup. Move to that out of phase middle position. Almost like a kind of cocked wah sound it makes, that. Very distinctive. Not for everybody, probably a bit of a Marmite sound, but it's certainly different and certainly cuts through nicely. Okay, finally the bridge pickup. So, as you can hear, nice biting tone, a good amount of clarity from the neck pickup, some warmth in the bridge pickup, which is nice, along with that sort of toothy bite to it, and that middle position with the out of phase sounds. Again, whether you love that or hate it, it'll be down to the individual, but it's certainly a very famous part of the sonic DNA of the original Greeny burst. So it would be weird if it wasn't here, and it is here on this Epiphone version. So if you like that, you got it. So final thoughts on this guitar. What do we like? It's very playable. It's set up very well, and the pickups sound really nice and clear and musical. Those are all great things about it. The Greeny specific replica touches, okay, it would be weird if they weren't there. I think that's more of a personal thing, whether you're bothered about that. But clearly, if you're going to spend this kind of money on an Epiphone version, you're probably doing it because you have some sort of affinity with the original Greeny. And if that's the case, they've definitely pushed the boat out a bit on this guitar to make it worth the while. That said, I think it is quite a interesting value proposition when you consider that things like the tribute model Gibson USA Les Pauls are a bit cheaper. The USA Les Paul Modern Lite, which has just launched, is exactly the same price at about £1,500, and the Gibson USA version of this is $3,000. So okay, that's nearly double the price. You've got quite a lot of things to weigh up, I would say, before you push the button on this guitar. If you did, however, it's certainly a really nice Les Paul. No matter what the name on the headstock, it makes some great sounds. It's very playable. It's a good weight, and it has this nice tactile finish and nicely rounded binding. Actually, more rounded and kind of smooth than we noticed on the Gibson USA model. That's twice the price. So it's not a guitar without its own refinements. We suspect, though, that the sticking point for many is whether that Epiphone name on the headstock, that Gibson-shaped headstock, whether that sits well with you at around £1,500 or not will be the real deciding factor, along with how much of a devotee you are of the late, great Peter Green and indeed Kirk Hammett, who uses the original Metallica these days. And that's an equation we probably can't solve for you, but hopefully this video has given you an idea of where you might stand on that matter. So thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed it, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you next time.